Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the City of Minneapolis Black History Month celebration. We're going to be celebrating all through March, every Thursday, 12 o'clock, right here. Today is our second celebration. The theme for this year's Black History Month celebration is Activate, Empower, and Raise Your Voice. And the theme for today's program is Empowering Youth. And I'm all about the youth, so I love that. Today, my co-host is Councilmember Abdi Warsame. Is Councilmember Warsame around? Okay, then we are moving on. So, we have a really nice program for you today. We have from the north side of the city, Les Petites Jolies dancers to come dance with us. We have spoken word from Mayo, the Heart of the Struggle. We have our keynote speaker from the Minneapolis Spokesman Recorder, Ms. Tracy Williams Dillard. And we're going to bring it home with another group representing the north side, my side of the city, the Henry High Elite Step Team. So, to get started, Les Petites Jolies. That's French, you understand. Sharon Cook started Les Petites Jolies, La Jolie Petites. I said the wrong way. School of Dance in 1997, reaching out to young girls by providing them the best technical training in ballet, modern, lyrical, and African dance. La Petite Jolie, or La Jolie Petite School of Dance, believes that when youth are continually reminded of their self-worth while engaging in fun, creative exercise, potential emotional and physical problems are prevented. Since the inception of La Jolie Petite School of Dance, more than 300 dance pieces have been choreographed by over 1,200 students. In the summer of 2006, dancers trained with the world-renowned Alvin Ailey Dance Theater in New York City. They were taught modern and ballet by top professional instructors as well as Alvin Ailey Company. The dancers, which is now being taught to Les Jolie Petite School of Dance students, the school strives to provide its students a much-needed example of African-American leadership and talent in the world of dance. Les Jolie Petite School of Dance offers scholarships to bereaved and grieving children. Students can also participate in transportation program that provides pickup and drop-off services. As part of the nutrition plan, Les Jolie Petite School of Dance offers a continental breakfast program that provides healthy snacks and foods for students. Les Jolie Petite School of Dance has been featured in several newspapers and interviewed on KARE 11 by Roxanne Battle. They've traveled to Atlanta, Georgia, Orlando, Florida, Las Vegas, Nevada, and even Cape Town, South Africa to dance. And today, they're here to perform for you. Put your hands together for Les Jolie Petite School of Dance. All right, let's give it up one more time. La Jolie Petite. That's French, you understand. All right, our next performer, spoken word artist, goes by the name of Mayo, the Heart of the Struggle. Mayo Garner was born and raised in Inglewood, California, and began writing poetry at 10 years of age before moving to the Twin Cities. Tired of having emotions such as loss and grief build up inside, Mayo took to poetry as a positive outlet. Seeing his talent early, a homegirl of Mayo's asked him to promise her that he would take his writing seriously. He is holding up his end of the bargain. Since 2014, he has performed around the Twin Cities and was featured in the 2014 St. Paul Almanac. Please join me in welcoming Mayo, the Heart of the Struggle.
How everybody doing? I got 3 pieces for y'all. This first one's called Never Lose Hope. I want y'all to close your eyes. Now imagine how the world would be if no one believes in God. Because without hope, then what we all living for? So maybe that's the reason why some of us live life with no common sense. But don't blame us, because we just getting back to the world, what the world gave us. I came out my mother's womb with no place to stay with false dreams. It's like God didn't have a plan for me. And she said she could have been praying for better days, but she rather choose me, and she did. And I left her with a broken heart. Now she buried her tears on every man's chest, hoping that she could find love again. See, I came from a block where selling cocaine was the hope. But I knew some homies that turned their life to the Lord until they realized God ain't never there. Then they lost hope. Then they began snorting coke. Then their dreams went out the window, and I tried to tell them to slow down, but they just stared in my eyes and said, male. What's the point of keeping trying? We just all meant to die. What's the point of giving a fuck about the world when the world don't give a fuck about us? And if I knew what I knew now, I would have told them the point is to never lose hope. Now they sitting in prison doing life, and to this day I still write them letters, but the only thing they write back with is nigga never lose hope. See, I came from a place where everybody cry themselves a river, where the pain flows. Where our mother praying to God that her child heart won't be trapped in this black hole. When niggas hate living this thug life, but they can't escape because they don't want to leave their loved ones behind so the hood stays in them. Where everyone trying to stop the other child that cry, fuck the other child that dies, where every black man's to blame for corrupting this environment with drugs and violence, but they just give us some wings to fly with. Maybe there won't be so many ghetto birds dying. Then maybe we'll learn to give a fuck about the world when the world learns to give a fuck about us. Now I want y'all to open your eyes. Now imagine how the world would be if no one believes in God. Because without hope, then what we all living for? So maybe that's the reason why some of us live life with no common sense. But don't blame us, because we're just getting back to the world, what the world gave us. My second poem is The World's Bloody Hungry. I know this sounds broken, but the place that traumatized me as a child, I still consider that my home. Therapists ask me why, I replied because the people I love the most still lives there. You grew from a crack called blackness. Crack babies grown up selling crack, so out of the ghetto you emerged from blackness. No looking back. You called me here and then to ask me how the city is going. I told you. The city is restless, the pain is grown, there's no love in this place. He's like a dog in a cage, barking in anger. He would kill just to get a taste of freedom, like a rat in a maze. He's lost. How can these young niggas prevail when mama's struggling on her own and daddy's a Rolling Stone? The rich kids got the blueprint to success, while the bottom eaters is money hungry. Criminal mindset goes back to ancient days where our ancestors were slaves. They'll do anything to rise above the oppression, even if they had to kill or steal, nigga. White men pit two black men in a cave, stand back, watch them kill each other for the wealth, nigga. Bloody murder. All I see is bloody murder. Ski masks, smoke bombs, and protesting. The tongue is silence. We just throw up a fist to let them know our freedom is ours. In the bloody eyes, you can see violence. Before a mother push out life, she screams, bloody murder. All I see is bloody murder. And when everything dies in our hands of our Father, he screams, bloody murder. The world is bloody hungry. And this is my last one. It's called, Am I to Blame? My grandfather used to say to me, the author is born into a heart as a black man, and his story is left behind written in ink, spelled with penitentiaries full of rage of neglection. If I asked you to describe a black man, what would be your first thought of me? Would it be a foreclosure home full of nut stains or crack babies and absent fathers? A madman that only know how to react to violence aggressively? He doesn't know how to control his emotions, so every word she says stings like a bee. So he puts his hands around her throat, and every time she tries to speak, he grips it till she can't breathe. Is that the black man you see? Because I was told I was a reflection of my nothing-ass father. I was to blame for not killing myself in my mother's womb. I just sat there and allowed her to push me out, even though I knew I would have to prove to my mother, to the black woman, to America, that I was more than just a black man with a blunt and a gun. But a heart that cries silently at night, when no one's awake. An untold story only black men tell themselves, because inside this untold story is about a black man that kept repeatedly putting a gun to his head, but he couldn't get himself to pull the trigger, because if he did, then they would have considered him a coward, and if he didn't, he still would have been worthless. Am I to blame for all these broken homes, for all these penitentiaries, and I'm to blame for all this violence, for all this chaos? Then if I am, then as a black man, I take responsibilities for the things I have done. But when is America going to take responsibilities for the things they have done to me? Thank you.
Let's give it up one more time for Mayo, the heart of the struggle. All right, now we've come to the time for our keynote speaker. Our keynote speaker today is the publisher of the Minneapolis Spokesman Recorder, Ms. Tracy Williams Dillard. Tracy Williams Dillard grew up in the newspaper business, starting from the time she was 8 years old, running the Addressograph label maker, which, by the way, is on display right around the corner here, for her grandfather, Cecil Newman, founding publisher of the Minnesota Spokesman Recorder. She has literally worked her way up to being the newspaper's current publisher and chief executive officer. Tracy grew up understanding the credo of the black press, which still hangs on the wall of her office in South Minneapolis. That credo goes, the Negro press believes that America can best lead the world away from racial and national antagonisms, which it accords to every man, regardless of race, color, or creed, his human and legal rights. When she steps foot over the threshold of the MSR office, which were designated as a local historic landmark in 2015, she understands the duty entrusted to her to tell the story of the black community when many corporate publications still fail to do so. Black people claim their history when it is recorded. The black press is black history. But that's not all she does. Tracy has served on several local boards, including the Boys and Girls Club, the Minneapolis NAACP, Southside Community Collaborative, the African American AIDS Project, Twin Cities African American Leadership Forum, Twin Cities Public Television, and the Global Women's Network. Tracy is also the founder of Sister Spokesman, a group that offers women of color a monthly opportunity to network and learn from a wide range of guest speakers and expert panelists. Please join me in welcoming Tracy Williams Dillard.
Thank you so much for that welcoming. How's everybody this afternoon? All right, well, first of all, I want to take this time to thank the City of Minneapolis, the Minneapolis Black Employee Network Group, Zeba and Zoe, who are with the Councilwoman Jenkins. They did an outstanding job. I also want to thank Councilwoman Jenkins for recognizing the MSR and making sure that we're in this building today for you to see it. And then I also want to thank Velma with the City Civil Rights Department, who came to my office and worked 2 days tirelessly, pulling together all the artifacts and the old pictures and everything that you'll get a chance to see this afternoon. So let's give them all a round of applause. So I wanted to first, talk about who knows who the first black newspaper was? Anybody? Okay, Andrea. Nope, goes further back than that even. We go all the way back to 1829, and the first African-American newspaper was called the Freedom Journal. And it was first owned and operated by the African Americans. The two gentlemen that owned it was John Rusham and Samuel Cornish. And the first published edition came out March the 16th of 27, and it ran until 1829. One of the reasons the Freedom Journal existed is similar to today. When we talk about it provides readership for regional, national, and international news, with news that could serve to both entertain and educate It also sought to improve conditions for over 300,000 newly freed black men and women living in the North. That's why that paper got started. So my grandfather started a lot like some of the youth today. Weren't they great? They did a great job. Let's give them another round of applause. So we're talking today about empowering the youth. The youth always empowers and inspires me. I enjoy doing things with the youth. My grandfather started the newspaper when he was 8 years old. Actually didn't start this newspaper. He started a newspaper when he was 8 years old in school. And it was just a 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper that his school had at that time. When I look at the similarities in my grandfather and myself, I started working at the Minnesota Spokesman Recorder, then known as the Minneapolis Spokesman and the St. Paul Recorder. And I started when I was 8 years old. So as I was reading this book, I was starting to see the connection between him and I, and it was very interesting. But he started the Minneapolis Spokesman, downtown Minneapolis, and the St. Paul Recorder, downtown St. Paul. Now, my grandfather was a forward thinker, so he often said that in the book, he said, I didn't have enough money to start one newspaper, so I started two. And I'm like, I don't quite get the logic, but as I thought about it, I realized that it was double income. It was double advertising sales. So he continued to run the Minneapolis Spokesman and the St. Paul Recorder until 2009. Well, actually, in 1976, is when he passed. And then my grandmother, Leuna Newman, and my mother, Norma Williams, who's here with me today, and my uncle Wallace Jackman on her side were working with her at the paper all along as I was, but I was in and out of school, going to college and that kind of thing. In 2009, I was talking to my grandmother and the staff there because I kind of had self-appointed myself as the office manager, and we were talking about how the African-American community has grown. So it's not just Minneapolis and it's not just St. Paul. We have African Americans that now live in Duluth, Rochester, Mankato, different areas. So I wanted all the African Americans to feel this was their paper as well. So if they weren't in just the two demographic areas, they didn't feel that. So we merged them to become one. And today it's called the Minnesota Spokesman Recorder newspaper. So when we talk about the Minnesota Spokesman Recorder, the Minnesota Spokesman Recorder has done many things over the year to inspire the youth. My grandfather, actually, when he first was starting the newspaper, a lot of the youth in the neighborhood would stop by and visit him, and he always took the time. I know one of the gentlemen, Philip Crawford, was telling me a story. He was a trouble kid in school, and he was in school at Central High, right up the street from the Spokesman office. And his teachers was like, you know what, you're disruptive. Here's a pen and paper. Go interview somebody in the neighborhood. And, because right now you're causing too much chaos in the classroom. So he said he was on his way home. And he happened to stop by walk past the Spokesman office. And he looked in. He goes, I don't know what this is. Maybe I'll go in here. So he walks into the Spokesman office. And the woman at the front desk greets him. And he goes, hi, I guess I need to interview somebody. And she goes, well, what do you mean you guess? Well, what is this? He's like, she says, it's a newspaper. And he goes, oh, okay. Well, then she said, would you like to interview the publisher? He's like, the publisher? And he's thinking, no way, So they take him in and introduce him to my grandfather. He tells me the story, and he said he walked in, and he kind of sloped down in the chair, and he kind of sitting back because he's not really wanting to be there. And my grandfather says, so what is your name, young man? And he goes, so my name is Philip Crawford. He goes, Mr. Crawford, please sit up. I'm Mr. Newman, and I want to talk to you. So he gave him a sense of pride just calling him by Mr. Crawford. He said that he'll never forget that story. So as people come through or walk past the Spokesman or come in the Spokesman, young people, I always take time. Because we never know how we can empower one young person by just taking that time to give them. So it's always important for me to give the young folks today as much time as they need. They call me, I stop what I'm doing, I'll sit down and talk to them, because we need you tomorrow. For the spokesman, we need you for the literacy, we need you to make sure that people love you, you feel warm, you feel welcome, so that as you are going through life and you're starting to get your education and you look back at the MSR, you may consider that as a place that you want to work and write one day. And we encourage you to continue to carry the voices that my grandfather has carried over the many years. And the storytelling of the Black press is phenomenal. And unfortunately, some of the stories are repeating themselves. So my grandfather had to talk a lot about righting the wrong. There was a lot of things going on in the Black community then that made him need to write the newspapers. As a matter of fact, when he left Kansas City, Missouri, when he was 17 to come to Minnesota to start the papers, he knew that Kansas City didn't give him the opportunity, so he needed to come to the North where he felt he had more of an opportunity. One of his experiences, he said, when he first came to Minnesota, he went into a restaurant, ordered a hamburger, and it was laced with salt. He knew then that his work had just begun. So today, the MSR is known, the building itself is known, again, thank you, Andrea, for finishing what Elizabeth Glidden began, historical landmark. So our Minnesota Spokesman Recorder Office is now considered a historical landmark. We also, thank you. We also have a street that's right behind Kmart right off of Lake Street that's named after my grandfather, Cecil Newman Lane. Just recently, however, which I'm super proud of, with the work of Zoe Zebra and Elizabeth, and Councilwoman Jenkins, they've ended up helping us to get the street named after my grandmother. So now 4th Avenue is named the Leuna Q. Newman Way. So when I think about all the historical things that are happening, we're celebrating 85 years. We got the historical landmark for the building. Now the 4th Avenue is named from 36th to 42nd after my grandmother. And now we have this huge exhibit that you're going to get a chance to see this afternoon that's right here in City Hall. And it's been here for the whole month. It started January 31st, and they're keeping it all the way till the end of this month. It really shows the love that I feel the city has for the Black press. I did see Mayor Fry here a minute ago. Is he still here with us? He stepped away. I just seen him. Okay, but yeah, I just had noticed that he stopped in here to see us. But the other things that we do is we provide stories from local writers that attend events. So we're actually providing you with real news. They attend the events. They're part of the community. They tell the stories that are not covered by mainstream media, which is why we need to exist today. We create original content that provides unique information through our readership with regular columnists, which write on health, like our one and only Dr. Crutchfield. We got Dr. Golden. We got Charles Hallman, Larry Fitzgerald, Mitch McDonald, who write on our sports page. We got Dr. Hightower, Vina Cave, which does Voices for Racial Justice, along with Kevin Reed. So we got a lot of people that take pride and dignity in writing columns in our newspaper every week, and they do it because, first of all, they do it exclusively for us, but they understand that the legacy that the paper has in the Black community is unsuppressed by any other newspaper, and that the commitment to the historical mission of the Black press remains alive and well with the Minnesota Spokesman Recorder. So as we look out today and to talk about inspiring the youth, we hope that you make sure to grab some papers that we do have in the exhibit today. Take a look at the paper. You're going to see yourselves in them in a different form. Absolutely, he's waving a paper back there now. But we're always writing about the community, whether it's the youth, whether it's things that are going on that you need to be informed about. We hope our stories educate and enlighten you and inspire you to become the young people and the adults that you will become one day. And we're proud to have you as far as our community. And anytime you want to stop in and say hello to me at the Minnesota Spokesman Recorder, I welcome you, and my staff welcomes you, and we all open our doors to anybody that's interested in either becoming a writer, doing community column, just a piece in their opinion page, any form that you want to be involved. Subscribe today and get the paper, support the Black press, and thank you so much for having me out.
All right, I'm gonna ask you to stick around. We got a scoop for you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Velma Corbel, and I had the pleasure of spending some days with Tracy and her staff back in January, collecting all of the newspapers and artifacts that you'll see in the exhibit. And for me, it really became a labor of love, because as I was there was another young man there from Minneapolis Institute of Art, Donald Thomas. I don't know if he's here. Desiree Lynn Cole, who was a City of Minneapolis employee in race and equity, was in the building with me. It was a lot of fun. It was educational, and Tracy and her team opened up the spokesman recorder offices, and they were warm and welcoming, and we just had a good time. I actually had my husband there one night, who was helping to frame some of the newspapers that we're using in the exhibit. You don't understand, or maybe you don't realize the treasures and legacy institutions that we have in the city of Minneapolis unless you get out and get really engaged with them. And you see the people behind these institutions and the love and the hard work and the dedication that has caused an institution like the Minnesota Spokesman Recorder to have existed for the last 85 years. It was just, it just turned out to be a lot of fun for me. And I want to thank Tracy and her team for welcoming us into the building. But I'm here today because about 5 years ago, the city of Minneapolis, through its Civil Rights Department, created an award called the History Makers at Home. And this year, Tracy Williams Dillard is being awarded a History Maker at Home. And so I wanted to make sure the award ceremony is actually next Thursday at noon right here in the Rotunda. But I wanted to make sure, because Tracy has her mother here and friends here, and I think her daughter eventually found a parking space and made it here. And so we want to make sure that we presented Tracy with her award today, while we have people here from the Spokesman Recorder and folks from her family who can help her celebrate this. So I want to invite Tracy up. And this is kind of an awkward little setup here, so hopefully we won't trip over cables. So Brian is going to grab it for me. So we're going to present Tracy Williams Dillard with the City of Minneapolis History Maker at Home Award. And so we'll come over here in case anybody wants to take a picture. So I also want to make an appeal to those of you who are, doing budgets and financing and policy making, all the things that you do. One of the things that I realized when I was over at the Spokesman Recorder offices is this first newspaper that Tracy's grandfather published was August 10th, 1934, and we have it in the exhibit. But there are hundreds of bundles of newspapers stored in the storeroom there at the Spokesman Recorder offices that need to be preserved. So I think we need to start having a conversation about how we can bring those things out and store them, or figure out a way to, do a renovation over at the Spokesman Recorder's offices so there's some climate control storage space for those things, because before the age of digitization, those newspapers tell our history. And we need to preserve that history, because in the masthead of the Spokesman Recorder, it says, "As it is spoken, let it be recorded." And we need to preserve that history. So I'm making an appeal to anybody who's within listening distance, leverage your network. Let's get that done. But anyway, I want to say thank you to Tracy and congratulations on 85 years. Keep going strong.
Wow. Thank you, Velma. This is quite the award. I really, I'm overwhelmed. I always pray for no tears because my work is a labor of love. And every time when I get a chance to talk about it, I try not to cry. But this is quite nice to get this award, and because sometimes you just do things all day long, every day, and you just do it because it's what you do. And you don't I never look for, accolades or awards or nothing, because it's just my way of doing what I do, So when I'm acknowledged by things like this, I take it very heartwarming, and I appreciate it greatly. Now, Velma told me that I come back down next Thursday, and I'll be a part of the whole group of 6 that's receiving the award. So I hope for those that have lunch down here, you come back. I'll be here next Thursday to get the other award that goes along with this, so I got a double one. So in the meantime, I thank you so much, Velma. Thank you so much for the city of Minneapolis. Thank you all for coming out and spending your afternoon with me on your lunch break, because I know a lot of you got to get back to work. For those of you who don't have to leave right away, we're going to take a tour down there to the exhibit, and I'll be able to tell you a little bit about some of the things in the exhibit along the way. Thank you so much.
Sometimes a labor of love results in tears of joy. Give it up one more time. By the way, I'm gonna probably need that back so I can give it to you next week. We're on a small budget. Just kidding. Next, I'd like to bring up Mr. Quentin Bonds to introduce the Henry High Elite Step Team.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. How you all doing? Right, try that again. How you all doing this afternoon? Good, good. So my name is Quentin Bonds. At Patrick Henry, I am our family and community liaison and public relations coordinator by day, every day, right? But I also coach the Patrick Henry High School Elite Step Team through our Beacons Boys and Girls Club, something that I'm really excited about. I just want to take a moment. When we think about step, it's a really unique art form where we are using our bodies, right, to make sound and all the other good stuff. And when we think about step, I also want to say, we are people who have stepped through our pain, right? We are people who step when we are excited, right, and step through that. And it hails from Africa, right? So step hails from Africa with influences from the black church. There are military influences. We think about our black soldiers. Then there are groups like the Four Tops, right? The Temptations, right? The Supremes. We think about all those folks, right? And those things made their way to college campuses across the country and influenced historically black Greek letter organizations. And those historically black Greek letter organizations would compete against each other to kind of see who could run the yard. Whoever could come up with the best routine is who would win. They run the yard. And now this culture has made its way into churches, right? It's made its way into elementary, middle, and even high schools, like Patrick Henry High School in North Minneapolis, all right? And so we started the Patrick Henry High School Elite Step Team in 2011, and we have been going strong since. They are a group of young people, 9th through 12th grade. I'm going to bring them out really quick, so why don't we give it up to these young people as they come forward. And they're going to get into formation here. Once again, these are 9th through 12th graders at Patrick Henry High School. And when we think about STEP, there is a lot of hard work. There's discipline, right? And we do these things, and we focus on being physically fit and all that other good stuff as well. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Patrick Henry High School Beacons Elite Step Team. And when we think about STEP, sometimes I can't put it into words. And if you like what you see, you can make some noise. Step team. Step team. I said step team. Step team. Step team. Step team. I said step team. Step team. Every single day. Step team. Step team. I said step team. Step team. Boom, boom, boom. If you like what you see, make some noise. All right, y'all, here it is. Here it is. Here it is. Step team. If you like that, make some noise. Step team. Uh-oh. Watch out now. We want to thank you all so much for spending your time with all of us. It's been a beautiful day, and we're going to make our little exit here. So E-L-I-T-E, the Elite Step Team's in the building. Thank you.
All right, I was back here, watching and doing a couple of them steps in my mind, and I caught a Charlie horse. All right, to close us out with some good information, I'm going to bring the lovely Miss Jennifer White.
Can we give it up one more time for all of our performers today, all of the young people who came out? Thank you. We appreciate you all so very much. And also a special thanks to Tracy Williams Dillard of the Minnesota Spokesman Recorder. We'd like to invite you all to join us down the tunnel here in between the city and the county to see the 85th anniversary display of all the beautiful artifacts from the Minnesota Spokesman Recorder. If you have time, please head over that way. Thank you to all of our MBEM members, our planning committee, and of course, our executive sponsor, Director Velma Corbel. Thank you all so much. We hope to see you next Thursday.